Let's get into the first topic today, which is going to be the top 5 teams that I would want to rebuild in Dynasty in the upcoming EA Sports College Football 25. Now, before we get started, it's a little bit more of a scuff setup. I'm back in my childhood room. Go Bucks. Y'all ever seen this play before? It's the one that goes like...
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins!
And basically the entire room is decked out in Ohio State or Cleveland gear. There's a Cleveland Guardians when they were the Indians, the Cleveland Browns, and there's Ohio State versus Clemson, a game I was at back in like 2014. Ohio State banner, coolest thing I've ever had. Like I said, a little bit more of a scuff video. I don't have my microphone here, so I'm just stuck kind of talking to the camera. I don't have a microphone at my house, but it is what it is. Let's get to the top 5 teams that I would want to rebuild in Dynasty. Now, the things in common with these teams are that they haven't really had a lot of success in the last 20 years. One of them has been kind of successful, but they've moved to a new conference. But these teams have not really done a lot on a large scale the last couple of years. They've got cool things to rebuild, or they just haven't been a good team at all, like in their history. So starting out number 5, I've got Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt is one of the 3 teams that have never won 10 games in the history of their program. I don't really think that their jerseys are too cool. I mean, there's not a lot to choose from. They did just get a new stadium, however, which I think is pretty cool. Vanderbilt comes in at number 5. I think that would be a really cool rebuild with the team that they got going for them. And I always think of, when I think of Vanderbilt, I think of that one clip where the guy's like, y'all are coming into our house and playing that SEC ball. Alabama, you're next. And then just cuts to Jalen Hurts being like, theoretically, we are next on the schedule. I'm going to put that clip here now.
When you come to our house, we show you how to play some SEC ball. It don't matter where you're from. You're going to know what ball we play. We're going to next week ranked. That's fine. Alabama, you're next.
Theoretically, we are next on their schedule.
That was a great thing for Vanderbilt to do because they were 3-0 that year, and I think that's probably one of the best seasons they've ever had. Anywho, Vanderbilt number 5. Number 4, Iowa State. Same thing. They're 2 of the 3 teams that I mentioned so far that have never won 10 games in their history of their program, which I think is crazy because Iowa State had Brock Purdy a couple years back. They made it to the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma. Maybe they were 9 wins that year. But Iowa State, really cool area that you could recruit with. You can kind of battle against Iowa, cool rivalry game that you could play in. And again, the conference is really cool. And that's something with Vanderbilt too, I should have mentioned, is that Iowa State plays in the Big 12 now, which is full of like 16, 18 teams. And Vanderbilt in the SEC would be tough to rebuild too. Iowa State, kind of cool location. You have a rivalry matchup. I think their jerseys are a lot nicer than Vanderbilt, and there's probably a lot more options that you can go with, even though we haven't seen all the options, just based off of what we had in NCAA 14. Now, number 3, I got to play a little close to the vest here. UCF, the team that I went to, I've seen many of their games. I think UCF would be such a fun rebuild because in the trailer that we saw on the Sights and Sounds, you see them doing the kickoff, and it's like, UCF Knights. That's what they do at every kickoff. They got Zombie Nation in the game, which would be really cool. UCF's jerseys are sick, by the way. They got the space uniforms. Here's me in a picture of the space uniform. UCF would be really cool. Football team up and coming. People call UCF the sleeping giant. Obviously, they went undefeated back when they were in the AAC. Now they're in the Big 12, looking to compete. Had a solid year last year, but really probably should have won 8 or 9 games last year, and this year with a chance to do better. The reason why UCF is even on this list is because I attended there, as I think UCF is an up-and-coming team, like even like unbiased. They're going to be like playoff caliber team in 2-3 years because they're recruiting top 25 every single year. Go look at it. And Gus Malzahn, from being at Alabama when he was the offensive coordinator with Cam Newton, has really shown that he can develop quarterbacks, and now KJ Jefferson from Arkansas is a quarterback. UCF will be a really cool rebuild to do. Nice uniform, nice stadiums, great team, and on top of that, just really cool area that you could go up against, again, in the Big 12. Now, number 2, this is the only non-Power 5 team I put on the list because I didn't want to give too many, like, unappealing, I guess, rebuilds. A lot of people like to be in the Power 5 and kind of beat up Bama or beat up Georgia or beat up Ohio State, kind of be that team that takes over for them. This team is Tulane. Tulane used to be in the SEC, so if you want to do something fun by putting Tulane in the SEC, I think you could do that. That would be really cool to have them going up against LSU, playing back and forth against them. Tulane also sick jerseys. I mean, we look at Tulane with their green, Tulane with their blue. Anything that Tulane puts on just looks good, and their field's also pretty cool. And again, another interesting area where you can kind of recruit against LSU and places like that, kind of like try to steal some of the recruits from the big dogs. That's something that I think would be an interesting angle for people. Last but not least, this is the team that in my first ever dynasty, I'm not going to start here because I'm going to start at a 1-star offensive coordinator like every other person should. And that's going to be the final team that has never won 10 games. This one, I have a little bit of a tie to, which I don't have on my wall anywhere, but Indiana. Now, obviously, Indiana doesn't usually beat Ohio State. I can't remember the last time they have, probably before I was born, in football, not basketball. Shout out Victor Oladipo. Indiana is a school that I attended. I went to college there back when I was in 4th grade. I was on the campus at Bloomington, and I stayed in the dorms, and it was pretty cool. That was a very nice experience. I ran 30 yards on the football field. I have no idea how I even got on that football field. Thanks, Mom, for that. But they have that cool rock that's at the, I want to say from where I was, it was on the right side of the stadium. I don't know the directions. I was 10 years old. But I got to touch that rock, and then I ran 30 yards, and I'm like, man, I'm tired as a 10-year-old kid. But Indiana, number 1, again, have not won 10 games. seems like they're a bigger brand than they actually are. Like when I think of Indiana, I do think of like sports. I do think of sometimes like their basketball team's usually pretty good. In football, I don't know. I've always thought of them as like a solid, like almost bowl eligible team every year. But it seems like Indiana being one of the only 3 teams in the Power 5 to never win 10 games is crazy. So that's why Indiana's number 1. I like their uniform options as they're red. I don't like that they're in the Big Ten East. I don't even know if they're not doing divisions anymore. So I don't like that I'll have to play against Ohio State. But I am going to make it my goal to be the head coach at Indiana in my first ever dynasty. With that being said, y'all got to let me know down below what your first dynasty is going to be. And of course, what you think about my list, what you would put on the list instead of what I put. And the most important thing is to have a great day. Peace.